What is up, ladies and gentlemen? But most of all, you ladies out there, thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg. LeBron just got the bag. We discuss next. Split cow! It has been a long week, but let's talk some hoops and make it a little better. Can we talk some hoops? Let's get into it. LeBron James, King James of the Los Angeles Lakers, just signed a monster 2-year, $97.1 million deal with the player option at the end there. We're going to talk about it because I think this is more than just LeBron signing an extension. When LeBron does things, there's a reason for it. LeBron, I believe, is pushing, is kind of forcing the Lakers' hand when you're talking about moves they'll make this offseason. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about why LeBron signed this deal. And we're also going to talk about LeBron James being underpaid. And you might have just heard that number of almost $50 million a year, and your jaw dropped to the floor when I said that LeBron James is underpaid. But we're going to break down the numbers because I think this is fascinating. You hear so many people out there, these pro athletes are so overpaid. It's just not true, and we're going to break that down with facts. First, please take a second to like and subscribe to the channel. You see how fast we're growing. We're up over 300 subs. That is crazy. In the off season, it's really hard to put out content, and that's a hard time to grow. But we've been able to do so because of you guys, and I appreciate y'all. We're putting out quality content. We're talking about real things. We're not putting out nonsense. We're bringing facts, and I've enjoyed talking to y'all. So let's keep growing. Let's keep heading in that direction. But let's start with this: why LeBron James signed this contract? Because I think that this is really interesting when I sat down and I thought about it for a bit. So they were originally talking about, will LeBron James sign a contract extension this offseason? And my initial thought was no. When you're talking about why does someone sign a contract extension, there's a couple reasons you can. The main one being to secure your money. So, for instance, Zion Williamson, someone who's had injury concerns in his career, just signed a massive contract extension. He still has 1 year left on his deal. He'll play this year, and then he'll hit into that contract extension year. So he wants to make sure that he's getting guaranteed dollars if something were to happen this year. Same thing that you see when you're talking about the NFL. A lot of people are recommending that Lamar Jackson should sit out a year. Don't risk getting injured. Get your money, get your contract extension, and then focus on the game. The NBA is a business. We got to remember that. So when you're talking about LeBron James, the thinking behind why he needed to sign a contract extension, to me, is not very strong. LeBron did not, I don't want to speak on another man's dollars. That's not what we want to do. But as far as needing the money, he has so many great businesses out there and so many ways he's making a revenue stream. As far as like needing the money, that's not why LeBron signed this contract necessarily. And then you think, LeBron could have got this contract with a ton of other teams. He could have got it next year. So what is the reason that LeBron signed this contract? And I think it's pretty clear when you think about it. The Lakers have been rumored in many trades for Kyrie Irving, and then an Indiana Pacers trade for, what's his name, Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. And potentially Bojan Bogdanovic, the Utah Jazz. They've been rumored in those trades. But it has been reported that they are refusing to give up their 2029 first-round pick. So they have a 2027 first-round pick and a 2029 first-round pick. Apparently, based on the reports, the Nets want Westbrook, 2027 and 2029 first-round picks for Kyrie Irving. And the Lakers are refusing to do so. What LeBron signing this contract does, to me, is tell me that the Lakers have told him that one of these deals is getting done. That means Russell Westbrook is out of there, and one of these deals are getting done. The Lakers probably wanted some reassurance that they wouldn't do this deal and then lose LeBron in a year and then not have their 2027, 2029 draft picks. When you're talking about those picks, the chances that those turn into an all-star level player or a good NBA player are very slim. So when you're talking about maximizing the talent of a top 3 NBA player of all time, to me, number one, but I haven't got my Jordan jersey on, so you know, they're both great. But you're talking about top 3 NBA player of all time. Maximizing his greatness while you still have him on the roster is way more valuable to me than a 2029 draft pick, some 13-year-old kid that probably won't be a good player. That's just the reality of it. So LeBron signing this is giving the Lakers the reassurance they need to trade that pick. And it also is LeBron saying, I trust them to build a winner. A lot of tweets I saw saying that this means that the Lakers are going to be stuck in mediocrity. That makes no sense to me. The Lakers are not going to be stuck in mediocrity. If Anthony Davis comes back and plays as the guy that he could be, that's what's most important to this Lakers team. When you're looking at this upcoming season, this season is all about Anthony Davis. Does he come back angry? Does he play angry? Does he play at his peak potential? Because if he's at that level and LeBron's balling and they get a Kyrie Irving, or if they do that Miles Turner Buddy Hield deal, this team could be a real, we'll have to see if they're a contender based on the moves they make necessarily, but it's not going to be a team that is missing the playoffs again if Anthony Davis is right. But let's talk about LeBron James being underpaid, because I think that this is an interesting conversation. And like I said earlier, a lot of people you'll hear say these athletes are so overpaid. They're so entitled. They're so overpaid. And it's just a bunch of nonsense, because what people like to point out sometimes, but they ignore at other times, is that the NBA is a business. When you hear people saying, I don't know why this person's getting traded. I don't know why this person's not playing out their contract. This is a business. You got to play it as a business. And then they talk about how these players are overpaid. They're not also realizing that this is a multi-billion-dollar business that's revenue is through the roof. And that these players are making so much, these teams are making so much money off of these players. So to say that they're overpaid is simply just not understanding basic economics. When you're talking about if an NBA team is making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, to give some of that to their players, to give them $10 million a year, is not overpaid. That is supply and demand. That is economics. That is paying someone for their services. The same way that if you work for a business and if you're the reason that that business is making hundreds of millions of dollars, your paycheck will reflect that. And it doesn't matter if you're the biggest apple company in the world, fruit company in the world, and I break it down to something stupid saying you're just selling fruit. You're just playing basketball. It's so stupid to look at it from that perspective. Anything else in the world, that makes no sense. But when we're talking about the athletes, we, for whatever reason, want to tear them down and say that they're... So let me give you some numbers. And this is going to be... we don't have the numbers yet from his impact on the Lakers, just because he's still there. But we're going to talk about the revenue streams with the Miami Heat from LeBron's time in Miami. So let's look at this for a second. LeBron was making about $20 million a year with the Miami Heat. I think it was $19.5 million in his contract he signed. Now, he did take a little bit of a pay cut so that he could play with Wade and Bosh. That is understood. But when, at the time, the max contract was not much more. So when you're looking at this, in 2009, okay, and this was before LeBron got there, the Miami Heat were worth $364 million. Seems decent. 2013, 4 years later, LeBron James had joined the squad. They were worth $625 million. You're talking about an increase of almost double. Probably, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but probably 35 to 42% increase in revenue for the Miami Heat. Just their worth. And that's not count. And then we look at it. If you look at it, why is that? Their ticket prices jumped an average when LeBron got there of $13.93 a ticket. In comparison, the rest of the league jumped $2.12 a ticket. That is godly revenue that LeBron James brings to your organization. When they talked about when he went back to Cleveland, he stimulated their entire economy because people come to see LeBron James play in the playoffs, in the finals, in games, break records, things like that. You're talking about hotels making more money. You're talking about restaurants, taxi services, parking garages. All these businesses are making way more revenue because of a player like LeBron James. LeBron also repeatedly took his team to the finals. Playoff tickets, if you've ever looked at those, are way more expensive. Watching LeBron James in the final is a very expensive venture. So the amount of money that these teams are making in concession stands, in tickets, in team shop gear, things like that. LeBron also had the #1 selling jersey in the NBA. So when you're talking about, is LeBron James overpaid? That is nonsense. That is nonsense. He has been underpaid his entire career. When you're talking about the amount of money he brings to a business, to a community, to a state, even when you're talking about Ohio, the amount of money he brought to the city of Cleveland was worth way more than the 30 whatever million he was getting paid when he was there. It's worth way more. And that's what you got to understand. And that's why I think when we're talking about this LeBron contract extension, yeah, 48 point whatever million is a ton of money. It's a ton of money. But when you're talking about the salary cap continuing to increase, and the amount of money LeBron James brings to a team, it's worth it. It's worth every dime for the Los Angeles Lakers. It's worth every dime for the Cleveland Cavaliers and Miami Heat to have LeBron James on your roster. And I also think this means that Westbrook is gone. And we're going to see a new look Lakers team. I'm excited to watch them. I'm excited for this upcoming season. Appreciate y'all watching. Got any questions, anything like that, comment below. Any topics you want to hear me talk about, Cyborg out.